is like fireflies in heaven, brighter than I could.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Stream Scene, our last show of 2020. We are going to be going on a small break after this week of shows to help rebuild some of our shows. We're going to tweak some things. We've got some new shows that we're working on, and we're going to launch that and so much more at the beginning of 2021. I personally am super excited. Hunter, my co-host, how you doing? And are you excited?
Yes, I'm in this curious position of I've been on my own intermission for the last couple of months, and I'm about to come back to streaming myself at the same time as we over at Streamer Square are switching the gears into the opposite direction, going into our intermission. I love taking this kind of time to get hands-on and dive deep into the really important, high-priority, big impact projects that we're going to be working on. And as you said, roll it out in 2021. So amped. And the rest of y'all should be pretty excited about that too. We're going to be revealing some details at some point in the near future. Other than that, I'm doing pretty heckin' well. It's nice and chilly. I rocked a double hoodie all this weekend. Feeling excited about this particular subject, quite unlike all of our others. I'm never excited about the other ones. This one's got me amped. I get so many questions. We collectively get so many questions all the time about how do I figure out how much I'm worth to a sponsor.
A hard question.
What's that?
It's such a hard question.
It's really
something that I still struggle with.
It's not obvious, but we do have people here, brilliant human beings, to help us figure it out today. Stephen Spohn and Santa. We had a name convention conversation earlier. Santa and Stephen Spohn, thank you both so much for joining us today. Santa, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us who you are, what you do, why you're here?
Hi, I'm Josh, or Santa for anyone that's never met or heard of me before. I have been in the gaming and streaming industry a decade next month.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah, thank you. It's so wild to think about it, right? And like you think back 10 years ago when Twitch was like mostly an idea, it's crazy to see how far it's come. Which, and to the topic of today, how much it's become a business for so many.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have been working in both the charity and talent management side of the industry for 5 years plus now. And prior to that, I worked at a game studio and was a part of the more traditional side of the industry.
Steve, what about you?
I don't know why I'm here. Where am I right now? Anyways, I thought this was supposed to be about how you do cupcakes on an easy bake oven. I don't even know what's going on right now.
I could use that information.
We can do that instead if you want, Steve.
I know someone that happened to set an easy bake oven on fire at one point.
That's impressive.
Nice. Well, my name's Steve Spohn. You may recognize me from a guy on internet with famous person, or a guy on internet with other famous person, or a guy on internet who has last name that rhymes with organization.
A lot of name dropping going on today.
Yeah. I'm channeling the guy you see running around the internet doing cool things, and I have no idea why. I'm here to talk about how you should value yourself, and to give the perspective of you don't necessarily have to know the answers to also make it work.
Yeah.
Ooh. It's very true. I feel like this is a question that I feel has evolved so much over the last couple of years. Streaming has been the Wild West, and more so becoming, structured, and industries caring about, their industry getting compensation, not referencing anything in particular, just saying, it's changed so much. And with that, there's been a lot more sponsored opportunities. There's a lot more alternative roles and jobs within the industry. And part of this panel today is to kind of figure out, try to educate streamers on the idea of the fact that some things that you shouldn't be doing for free, and figuring out okay, what is my time worth?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And one thing, I'll plant this seed now for us to talk about at some point. Endemic versus non-endemic valuation too. That's going to be really interesting. So the endemic is the stuff that's like native to our industry, and non-endemic is stuff outside. Like if you want to talk to Campbell's Soup or MeUndies about a sponsorship opportunity.
I think it's more of streamers and just humans in general have to realize what is endemic to them. Like, I think,
true.
yeah, one of the worst piece of advice I ever see floating around the internet is, well, what is a speaker fee to be on a panel in the video game industry? No. What is your speaker fee? What are you worth? What is your value? What do you bring to the table? That's how you really figure out who you are.
It also expands on the fact that, like, as creators, because it is something like I'll reference the most common thing I feel like from both this industry as well as just generally like influencer industry. The comment I hear a million times in a year is, I want to do voice acting on the side. And my question to the people that say that, as well as to any other avenue, voice acting being just one of the many that it could be, is one, is it something you want to do because you need additional income, or is it something that you want to do because you're passionate about it? And then it becomes a question of, are you putting the effort in? What are you doing to, expand upon it and build that into your portfolio of things that you do? I'll reference, for example, Duck Sauce, formerly named, now I'm going to mess up the name. It's Outdoor... Oh gosh,
I think it's
Big Man Outdoors.
Yes, Big Man Outdoors.
Craft.
Thank you.
It's Big Man Outdoors. I remember the second time.
Which he started as a gaming creator, and now he does voice acting for almost every major like movie, like intro, etc. And he's still a content creator, but he took the time, he honed a craft, he made it something that, like, at the end of the day, he made it something that was on par with his already succeeding and growing stream. And so one of the big things is, as we get into this conversation, it's also a question of, what are you doing to bolster the quality? And a lot of this also applies back into the content that you're creating, right? What are you doing to diversify yourself? What are you doing to set yourself ahead of the curve, so that when it comes to time for the conversations of price, you have the most leverage and negotiating weight possible.
Quick side note, Duck Sauce is the reason I started streaming.
Fitting.
That's awesome.
And I don't think I'd ever be able to do voice acting, specifically because you have to have good audio quality, and I can't be held responsible for that.
You're screwed in that regard. I'm sorry, Hunter. But that is one of the areas that you see a lot of content creators pushing more into, and with that comes an experience of not knowing where to price yourself. So that's one of the areas. What are some other areas? And you can be as specific or broad as you need. What are some areas in which streamers need to evaluate their worth?
So one of the big ones for me, and Steve, if you've got any, please by all means feel free to jump in here. But the one big one that I like always stands out to me for streamers, especially in the gaming market, and I try to differentiate gaming and a lot of the just chatting music IRL, etc. In the gaming market in particular, companies will be like, can you give us feedback on, how this game will stream? Can you do offline play tests of it to help us improve our game? And it's really like, at the end of the day, if a company came to me and asked me that, I would be looking at it from a consulting standpoint, because that's time, knowledge, like they're paying for years
Expertise.
Of my experience.
Right.
Exactly.
I have put so much effort into developing the knowledge that you want to have. That's worth something.
Yes, exactly.
A lot of people are not very good at valuing the knowledge that's in their head. They're not very good at understanding years of experience. So on the internet, because let's face it, Twitch culture is a bit ageist, those of us who have years under our belt tend to hide that or downplay that, or you won't admit to being as old as you are. But the flip side of that is, if you are in your 30s or your 40s, you now have over a decade, sometimes two, on your competition. Why would you not use that as a weapon? Instead, you're trying to tuck it away and pretend it's not there. So I think that, and I think to go along with Santa's point, which is something I've always wanted to say on TV. I think a lot of people are just bad at contract negotiations. I think
Very true.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think people are afraid to take their shot. And if they do manage to take their shot, then only a small segment of them, if rejected, will push back and go, hold on, okay, what about this? And the amount of times I've known personally, as well as other people who have been rejected, but then brought it around to a yes, companies actually want to get to yes. You just have to get them a reason to get there. They don't want to turn you down. It's like a dating app, right? We all find reasons to say no, right? You just need to find the reason why you say yes.
I think to that end, when it comes to negotiations, and this is, it's we're in an industry where I feel like imposter syndrome does run rampant because everyone's uncertain of their stability and longevity of this. And one of the things that I think is really common in negotiations is just that, right? Pushing back. I see it pretty frequently and help people draft these emails a lot where a brand will reach out and they'll say, hey, we've got X budget, and the creators oftentimes will just say like, oh, cool, that's great. And they never just send a second email to follow up to say like, oh, well, a little bit more even. And it's like, my reference to this, right? If you could send a single email for $100, why wouldn't you? $1,000, why wouldn't you? Right? It amounts to so much more. And long term, like if that email is a yes, like odds are, and there's full books and information out there on negotiation. But I think the average that I was told is oftentimes companies come to you with 60% of budget is more traditional industry where things start to negotiate, and that way they have room to go up if you push back. But if you say yes and take it, you land right where they want you to be, which is they didn't burn their entire budget at once.
Yeah, I think it's if you're being greedy or not too. I will say is like my final stipulation on that subject. It's like if let's say for example, I'm trying to recruit Santa for my Christmas special, and his price tag is $1,000. My budget is $5,000. And I'm like, hey, will you do this for 1,000? And he pushes back and goes, no, I want 10. Then okay, we come down to 5, and then bam, we both hit our targets. And I lowballed, he highballed, we came to the middle. But some people are afraid that what'll happen is you'll push back that email and you'll say, no, actually, I'd like this. And you're afraid that they're going to be like, all right, well, we can't afford you, so thanks anyway. But they've already made the outreach to you, or you've already landed that foot in the door, so they're already shown interest in you. If they come back, all they're going to say is, no, really all we can afford is the $1,000. Sorry, if that's not good enough, we're not going to be able to make a deal. And at that point, that is when it's on you to decide whether you'll do it or not. But just simply asking for more is rare. I won't say ever, because I'm sure there have been some Shark Tank moments where it's like, you asked for too much, I'm done. So
I think that you could even salvage that to an extent, right? If someone does happen to say like, no, that's way too much, we won't work with you. You could go back and say, okay, what's a reasonable budget that you can afford? And where can we edit, like where can we taper the deliverables so that we aren't overcommitting our time, but also helping you guys maximize the financial spend you have?
Real quick, clarify what you mean when you say taper the deliverables, because I think all of us on the panel know what you're talking about, but a lot of people out there listening do not.
So to dig into deliverables, because that is a big overarching topic of this, I suppose. Deliverables are line items that you are expected to complete within an activation, a contract, a campaign, etc.
Like so, a tweet, like
it could be a list of 2-3 tweets, 3 hours streamed, chatbot links, panel, title mention, tweet a clip afterwards, Instagram stories, anything that you are providing to them as a service that they are compensating you for. So say, for that $1,000 that I would be guest starring on Steven's special for the holidays, I could say like, I can only do 1 tweet. I can't do 3 because you can't meet me at the higher end budget that I was looking for. And they could say, cool, can you do 2 so that we can have a announcement and then a going live one? And and it's a negotiation. It's a back and forth. It's a discussion to say like,
all of that is variable to some extent.
It is 100%. Unless a brand earmarks something as this is non-negotiable, it's negotiable. Period. The end. Unless they say this is the thing we need, you can always find a way. I've only ever seen it in the 5-6 years I've been doing this, where I've watched a brand walk away from an entire campaign because we said no on one deliverable, because that was, to be clear, the single deliverable they wanted, and their entire campaign hinged on that deliverable. And because we weren't comfortable doing it, it just didn't work out. But, they had their KPI, which, performance insights that they needed to hit. And we could not provide that one piece that they used to gauge their KPI. So,
KPI
that was
is key performance indicators.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. And so but outside of that, typically speaking, right, unless it's something that they need, they're willing to be flexible. They want to get the marketing. They want to get eyes on the product. And they're coming to your audience who trusts you implicitly with what you say. So, and there's been regulations around that have changed in the last few years, where you do actually have to be willing to endorse the product, before taking the campaign. Whereas, rather than just saying oh, I don't like this product, but hey, for the right price,
Yeah, no,
there's good.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna add, there's the flip side of that as well, where sometimes you can misstep and you can offer the wrong deliverables. And sometimes they're not necessarily less valuable or worse, but they're just not what the company is looking for.
Sure.
I can tell you one thing that I've done a couple of times I had to walk back was trying to offer more as an incentive to get a bite. And then I ended up talking myself out of a deal. And I actually had to fall back and take what I considered to be extra off the table and say, well, look, what I'm really offering is this. And then they're like, oh, well, yeah, we're interested in that. Okay, good. Then I get what I want. You get what you want. It doesn't really matter. It's like, especially if you're putting the money somewhere. A good example is I was getting money for a project. I needed a video editor to be funded. The company wasn't interested in funding a video editor, but they were interested in a different deliverable that I could give. And I offered them both together. And they weren't interested in that. But when I pulled off this part about the video editor, then they're like, oh, the other part, yeah, we're good on that. So there is a point where you sometimes can accidentally offer too much and the wrong thing. Yeah, and then they're just like, nah, we're going to pass. When it's they did actually want it, but they didn't want all the extra little strings you put attached.
A presentation strategy that I was taught from one of my business partners is you hit the line item deliverables that they want in the quote, and then you offer a la carte as extra, here's the additional things I can offer. If you guys have a bit of extra budget and want to invest in a little bit more, these are the things that I think will resonate well with the community, and here's why. So you could present it almost as here's the extra, here's what I want for you to do the baseline spend, but please spend a bit more.
That's part of what I'm building out into my own pitch deck right now too, is here are core offerings, here's effectively an a la carte menu, additional things that we can toss in.
And, I know we talked about companies typically offer, like Santa said, 60% of their available budget. And there's definitely room to come up. Now, I do want to stress that, and this is the point of the show, is determining your value and understanding what your value is super important, because the last thing you want to do is come up simply to get more money and then not be able to deliver what you priced it at, because I mean, think about it this way. You get, one company to agree with you for $1,000. If they don't feel like they get their return, they're never coming back. But if you give a good value for what you offer and you deliver on that value, they will come back to you again and again. And that is how you establish relationships with brands.
You can also sorry, Hunter.
I was going to say, I think there's additional value in that. One thing that we mention pretty regularly, Loco, you and I, on various shows, is that especially among the endemic brands, the brands that are within our industry, you see a lot of the same people moving from one company to another. And if they've had a great experience with you at one company, they'll move over to another one a year later, 6 months later, 2 years later. And you may find yourself having a new opportunity with that company as well as the old one, because the old one also saw so much value in the work that you did. Now you have two.
That is a lesson that streamers need to learn in general, not about this topic, but in general. The world is very big, yes, but industries are very small, and people jump around a lot. So if you make the wrong adversary, you could be in for a career of hurt. And people hold grudges. They listen. They'll tell you there's not a blacklist, a black book. There is. There absolutely is, and there are names, and people talk, and particularly if someone reaches out to multiple PR contacts for the same thing and the same contract to see who's going to give the best deal, they're talking about you, and you're not going to get much of a good deal.
A lot of the competing companies talk as well. And I say that to the extent that, like, I manage streamers. I also once a month or so have drinks with other people who manage streamers at other companies. It's everyone knows each other, and it is, you know, if you make a bad reputation for yourself, it gets spread around pretty easily.
That could be an entire Stream Square project.
Very
is
true.
Just building reputation and
We've had
understanding.
Discussing PR.
Yeah.
So, so we talked a little bit about the first thing that or Josh mentioned about, like, in some the areas that streamers evaluate their worth, like sponsored streams is probably the most common thing. When, you know, for streamers, obviously, like, it's becoming more and more common where creators will have companies approach them and want to pay them to play their game. What are some areas, like, or what are some ways that streamers or creators should, how do I want to phrase this? What are some why am I struggling? Words are hard. How do you measure your worth? Okay, like, what things do you look at? There you go. Jesus.
Okay, first off, and before we dive into that, I do want to make one note very, very clear about this entire topic. When campaigns come to you, it is okay to say no. Can't emphasize that enough. If they aren't willing to pay you your worth, it's, you know, not necessarily worth. Yeah, exactly. So I guess
they're not even if it's just not the right fit.
Yeah.
Like I cannot tell you the amount of times I've had friends say yes to a game, particularly that was not their genre and didn't fit on their channel. Their community hated. They said yes because they wanted to work with insert big name here. They were afraid if they didn't say yes, they'd never get another invite. But instead, they turned in a bad deliverable, and now their numbers are horrible, and that's what they have to go on.
Yep.
Yeah, this is actually an area that I wanted to talk about, the power of saying no and how saying no can actually shape our industry by saying no to companies for bad deals, things you're not interested in, low rates that they won't come up with, or just them not wanting to pay at all and just trying to get, like, an affiliate deal. I know it can be scary to say no.
Yeah,
it's definitely tough. I think one of the most powerful things you could do is say, like, when you're talking to a brand, right, and you're declining something, you could say, like, this particular activation is not right for me in my community. I would hate to take the opportunity from someone else, but at the same time, I would love to stay in touch and be able to work together on future campaigns, because it opens the door up. They clearly came to you and sought you out, so you know they're interested in working with you.
I want you to say that again, just for emphasis, like how you handled that response.
It is verbatim saying, like, this is not a good fit for me. However, I do want to work with you in the future. Let's stay in touch. You know, I want it to go to a creator that is deserving, that is going to be excited about this. I'll give a reference. We had a motorcycle company reach out to one of my clients, and it was like, sorry to say no to this one, but we do have friends that are really big into motorcycles and we'd love to recommend them. Let's stay in touch for future campaigns. Like, it's a marketing agency at the end of the day. They're going to have more brands come to them.
And I think that creates goodwill too, right?
Does.
Like, in the same way that when you go to a store, if they don't have the product for you, a really good sales rep is going to go like, well, here's somebody who can get you what you want. And immediately, for me and a lot of other people, I almost instantly go, you know what? Just from that alone, I don't think I'm going to go to that other store. I think I'm going to take whatever your product is.
It really is. It's effective because you're willing to put your name behind someone else. Like, that goes a long way in any level of human interaction, right? To be able to decline something is really a powerful tool because it shows that you care about them too. And that is something that agencies, brands, you know, anyone in between, like, that matters to them because they know that you're not going to shaft them just to take a paycheck.
Yeah.
What about saying no on the account of either them not wanting to pay at all, or the rate's too low and they won't come up and you feel like you're worth more? Like, how does that affect the industry?
I think that it helps set a precedent that you don't want to undervalue your content. And that is something that like it's hard to walk away from a paycheck, especially with everything going on in the world.
Right.
It's really, really tough. I think, Hunter, you're one of the people that I have some of the most respect for. I brought a deal to you one day a couple years back, and you turned it down because you did not agree with the core concept of the game. You weren't okay with some of the mechanics.
Oh, I remember.
But like me going back to that brand and telling them that, like, you know, they found more respect for your content and wanted to work with you on other campaigns. They were like, well, what can we get them in for? And so to that end, there's that. To the subject of, you know, being undervalued, it's okay to say no because they're not willing to compensate you. There are a lot of other opportunities out there that are a good fit. And, you know, it's also very practical to say, like, I'm sorry, this isn't a reasonable rate for what I feel I should be making. Here's why. And then you can potentially convince them that you are worth the spend. Like, it opens the door to either potentially flip it to say, like, here's why I think I am of this value. Here's or you know, they're just not going to spend the money. There are some agencies out there who just they get a paycheck as a company to go do a bunch of outreach to get people to do stuff unpaid. And that's a practical reality in the space. It's possible that they never had a budget to begin with, and you're not going to get money out of them for it.
Yeah, and here's the thing with that on top of that is, like, if you accept a lowball deal just because it's a deal and you are getting some kind of money, guess what? That agency is never going to come up from that rate. Like, you're basically going to pigeonhole yourself to either free or super lowball deals because you've priced yourself. You've allowed yourself to be put in that position.
And there's an extension from that too, which is the culture of the industry. The more people who take undervalued work, the more companies are likely to only go in that direction, and that lowers the pay for everybody.
Yeah.
That lowers the value of everybody's ability to just the value, the monetary value, the dollar sign alone for what anybody else can get.
There's a really good story, and I'd say story because I don't know if it's true. One of those things the internet has made up, but it sounds right, so I'm going to repeat it. It's one of those. It was a thing that happened apparently with Tina Fey, where someone at a Q&A had asked her if she would wear a certain charity's T-shirt for $1,000, and she famously quipped back, "Anybody who thinks I would do anything for $1,000 is reading my old catalog." And I like that. I like that as just a mantra in life. Like, I'm not there anymore. I don't do anything for $1,000 now.
There, to that end, it's something that I struggle with, and I tweeted about this actually really recently. I hate publicly saying the standards for what I'm charging for any one creator at any given time, especially because of the state of the industry now. That number has gone up so much in the last 12 months. It's ridiculous. But the last time someone said that, it took us 2 years to undo that. And it's an argument with companies because then they take that as gospel and they're like, this is the only rate we're willing to pay.
Right.
And I'm like, that's roughly 5 cents an hour per viewer lower than what everyone else is paying as the standard right now. And like, that's a big deal. And to the extent that like it's, you know, up 20, 30, 40, 50 cents from where it is, it's just the guys that are looking back at the 4-year-old reference for it. Like, it is the old catalog. So it's tough to say something like that publicly, but I know that is kind of a subject that we want to dig into today. So if I know that pricing is a big topic.
Yeah. What's the secret? What's the formula?
I am prefacing this for what I'm currently charging and what I see a lot of, and so there's a breakdown beyond just, you know, here's the number, right? There is a lot of things you have to take into consideration. One of them is the company that you're working with, right? I'm not going to charge the same thing for an indie game studio with 5 people that I would for a AAA studio with publishing and the whole 9 yards. I'm not going to charge I am definitely not going to charge the same thing to a mobile game studio because they have more money than God. And to that extent, you know, I'm also not going to charge the same thing. Oh God, Pixel Monkey being in the chat makes me nervous talking about this. And you know, to that end, I'm also not going to charge the same thing to a non-traditional brand, someone like, you know, say Coke, Geico, you know, anyone that's coming at Smart Water. Like, you know, I'm not going to charge them the same thing because what they're looking for, it's not full content takeover. right? If someone wants me to do a
Right.
Bob Ross painting marathon to sell Bob Ross products versus just talk about Bob Ross painting products, it's a very different conversation and to how it impacts your content. So I guess the current rates, and this is, I do want to put this information out there just to help people understand. This has been changing over the last year, so please take this with a grain of salt.
It's dynamic.
It might be more, it might be less. The range that I've been charging for traditional brands, like full content takeover, has been, pending the scale of the company, 0.8 to $1.2 per hour currently per viewer, or times viewership. So if you look at your average concurrent viewers over the last 30 or 90, I look at 30 if your channel has seen immense growth in the last month. Like if someone was averaging 100 viewers and all of a sudden they're averaging 300, I will look at last 30. Otherwise, I do gravitate towards last 90 because it's a little bit more of a stable metric to go off of, and it's a little bit more forecastable. If you're
last
going
30
to
versus last 90 days.
Yes. Yeah. I typically look at quarterly. And then I take that, multiply that times the dollar amount. I scale lower for indie studios. I've gone I've seen people go as low as 30 cents an hour. If it's a game you're really freaking passionate about, go for it, right? Like there is a level of like, how much do I just want to work with this brand? Am I willing to cut them slack? I went to school with this game dev. Yeah, they're doing a big promotion, but they only have a $10,000 total budget. I want them to be able to pay 10 other creators as well. I'll work with them. Versus like, I know this company has $1 million budget for the year that they're spending exclusively on this. I want them to pay me a little bit closer to my worth. I have seen companies go up to as much as 4x for mobile. And that is, but there are ranges within that. There's also a question of, are you being compensated for conversions? Are you being compensated for, like cost per install,
tell us what conversions are.
Transaction. Conversions are user does a desired engagement, be it purchase product, install game, look at the website, sign up for a newsletter.
Just click the link.
Yeah, exactly. Like there are campaigns that do pay on that. So these numbers do all scale. And then when you get into brands just for like not full content takeover, that's a whole other price tag. I usually look at, what's the, if we're looking at, let's say a month, right? For a sponsored campaign, I look at, how many hours are we committing? What deliverables are there outside of Twitch, which is a whole other topic. What is, what's expected of you, right? Do you have to give them like likeness? Like we get into likeness. Are you giving them a year of exclusivity for a category?
Have to name your baby after them.
Exactly. And exclusivity is a big topic as well. Like there's a lot to dig into.
Yeah.
I will say openly, like Pixel Monkey in the chat is a phenomenal person as well that I talk to regularly about this stuff. Because these numbers change, as well as like, and here's something to be mindful of. If the ask is like, they want 20 tweets from you in a month versus someone else who might only want 2 tweets from you in a month, like, is it going to have a negative impact on your audience?
Right.
Because that's going to cost a lot more, right? Is that going to cause people to unfollow you? Like, is this going to be a bad engagement for you? And that becomes a question of, do you want to push back or charge a lot more so they're disincentivized to want to take it, or just going to pay you so much money that you can afford to take a bit of damage? So there's a lot.
Take a
I'm
breath.
nodding so hard about this topic. There's so many good points here, and I think that's why we have an entire show dedicated to this, because it is very complicated. And I think one thing, to not get too overwhelmed in like the formulas and the metrics and the conversions and everything. Like one thing that it comes down to ultimately is like, does it feel right? Like, are you happy with that price? Like, because if you calculate it and it's like, oh, well, it would be $10 an hour and you feel terrible playing a game for $10 an hour, then don't do it. Like, don't do that deal just because it calculates to be that, or ask for more if that's what you feel your worth is. Like, I know it sounds kind of silly to be like, go with your gut, but ultimately you should feel good about the deals that you're making. And if 20 tweets feels like, that, like it's not worth a lot. Tweets aren't worth a lot, but like that is a lot of, pushback and negativity that you can get, right? And that might mean a lot to your your brand. So
Yeah, there's the rapport with your audience that is a big factor.
Right.
Like, what does it really cost you to do these things?
They are, at the end of the day, your primary source of income. And while the extra income is nice, is it worth jeopardizing the thing that's paying your bills month over month?
Sure. Yeah.
Exactly.
And to the subject of social, and I would actually argue your social is not worth a little. It might not have as impactful of a presence, though. So for the average creator, and I'm going to say this broad strokes, generally for a 2-hour promotion, I include one social post free of charge. Because generally speaking, it is just getting your audience in the door. However, and this brings up a whole other topic that we could craft an entire other episode around, is your other social media platforms do have immense value. If you're, and this is, I had this conversation with another client. I don't necessarily make that offer for some people because when your following is, immense on a social platform, even if it's not your primary form of interaction, that still has value and still may reach people that aren't watching your Twitch stream, aren't watching your YouTube videos.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, yes, it's okay to, there are some concessions you make. However, you do charge for your social. It's your time, it's your effort, it's your audience. They have value, your viewers have value, and so do you. So I would say, yes, you do charge. And it's, obviously 2 hours. I do include one for most people, unless their primary social isn't their streaming platform, in which case we're already using the primary social to build up the cost to be higher. But it is something that you should value. And it's, I will say that calculating rates on Twitter fluctuates, and that's one where I'm like, I feel like maybe this for the week and see if the brand takes it. If there are definitely some weeks where I hit that. Some people it's a little bit more stabilized. We consistently know they have high engagement rate. They have good following. We know that their tweet's worth something. There are some people where it's like this brand asks for an extra tweet, let's say $50-$100 extra, see if they take it. Let's play the negotiation game and see if we can get a little bit extra for something that we're otherwise comfortable forgoing. Just because you don't put value to it in your own mind doesn't necessarily mean the company's not willing to spend on it.
Yeah, that's true.
We kind of touched on this a little bit earlier in the mobile versus indie thing, and there's 9 different points here I've been thinking about while I've been quiet. So the worth that you have, the worth that you hold is something that we're not hitting really hard on in this conversation here, and being comfortable with your own worth. For example, to not avoid throwing out numbers in the public speaker circuit, a nominal fee for someone who is considered underexperienced without much knowledge, a moderate value is $5,000 for one talk, an hour talk, $5,000. A good expert who's got a decade under their belt is $20,000. And you tell that to someone, and they're like, "I'm sorry, 20 what?" And
Especially in this case.
Right? Yeah. What? Yeah.
I've never heard of anyone being paid to speak anywhere in streaming.
Exactly, and we have to think about what our value is. For example, in Hollywood, they average a Twitter user right now, a follower is worth $2. So you take however many followers you got right now, and that is how many dollars you would be a tweet to someone who's in an acting profession. And that changes based on field progression, what they expect out of you, conversion rate, et cetera, et cetera. But there is some value to being smaller as well. For example, if you're somebody who has a lot of bots following your Twitter, and you're not getting a lot of retweets and likes, but you have a huge follower account because you inflated it with some fly-by-night Fiverr service, then the people are going to scan your feed and they're going to see that you've got 100,000 followers, but each tweet of yours gets 3 likes. Right. So they're going to know something's weird about that. Right? Yeah. So you have to also consider growing your own community, but you are, as Santa said, leveraging your people, the people who have supported you. So there's some tangibles there. Like you have only so much credibility with each individual in your community. Now it's an invisible number. But I like to think of it like The Sims. You know how they have each individual has a relationship bar between whether they're happy with you or they're not. Every single person in your community has that bar with you, and every time you say something,
forever, Steve.
Yep. Oh, you're welcome.
It's a cookie jar. If you reach in and take too many cookies, it runs out eventually.
Exactly. You have to be careful how many times you go back to the well. All right. So the water only replenishes so quickly. So you need to be careful about burning your own audience. And, you see this a lot in charity fatigue, particularly in my area, where people offer to do a charity stream, or they'll apologize to me for not doing one. And I'll be like, well, how many charity streams have you done? Well, I've done 3 for the last week, for the last 12 weeks. What? So you've done 30 charity streams in the last 3 months? Yeah. No wonder no one's giving you, because you've tapped them all. They don't have anything left to give. So you need to let them replenish. And, and people don't like talking about this, because it's almost like talking about humans like they're not, like as if they're some sort of part of a game. But
Right.
life in general, it can be worked in very much the same metrics, in that you don't ask a friend for too much. Make sure you're giving enough to your friend. You can be logical about your emotions and your moves and whatnot. And the other point I wanted to make off of Santa's expansive knowledge here is, you don't have to be a huge content creator to have value. There are some situations where a community that has, let's just say, a conservative 75, the Twitch minimum for partner, CVV. Let's say you have that every day. You're always at 75, rain or shine, but they're a loyal 75 bunch. You tell them to click on a link, they're clicking on a link. A company can see that, and they will like that much better than the person who's got 300 12-year-olds who follow, and they go, "Ha, that's great, link, funny, make funny noise." That there's, content creators are they can be savvy about their audience. You just have to make sure when you're talking to the brand that you let them know, like, hey, listen, like, I understand I don't have the highest CV numbers, but I'm telling you, all of my people are in their late 20s, their early 30s. They have money. They care about me as a person. I do not sell crap. I will not sell your product unless you send me a sample first, and show that you're willing to stand with the people and with the brand if they meet your approval.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Understanding your audience is actually super important when you're trying to find sponsored deals and working deals like this, because it gives you an idea of, like, when you get an offer, if you should accept it or not, like, will it be a good mesh with your community? And also, when you're seeking out deals and you're trying to, pitch to companies, if you can be like, this is my audience, this is your target audience, that's super effective in getting a company to be like, especially a company that's not in streaming, because I've seen streamers go after, as we've spoken about, non-endemic companies outside of streaming and gaming, being able to just hit them with the facts, hit them with the numbers, can help them pull them over and understand streaming and why it's valuable.
So there's one more thing I wanted to add of an exercise. I could feel Santa brimming with information here, so I'm gonna let him go. But there's one example I love to tell people when they come to my place and say, well, how do I estimate this kind of thing? All right, so let's make up some numbers, because we can all get in trouble here for mentioning any real Twitch numbers. But let's just say that a soda pop company does a billboard activation. It's a bounty board thing. They're going to give you $20 if you show off their soda pop on stream, right? And then they're like, wow, why did they give me $20 to drink one of their product? Well, they gave you $20 and they gave you $15 worth of product. So they're out $35. Each one of their sodas is $2.99. So all they need to do is sell 3 sodas in order to make almost all their money back. So all of a sudden, when you have your people coming to you and say, oh yeah, I bought 3 of those the other day. Oh, I bought a package of 10. They're really good. Thanks for pointing it out to me. They've now made back their money they spent on you 5-fold. So they're not stupid. They're not silly. They know what they're doing. You may not see the value in it, but you just gave them $200 worth of advertisement for their $30.
Yep.
Yeah.
That one is such a tough one too, because and there are a lot of companies out there who do undervalue people heavily for activations just like that. I like, there's so much to dig into when it comes to these sorts of things, and I feel free to stop me at any point, because I could go on with this one for days on end, as it's something that you spend time in the trenches too much.
The rest of us are going to leave at the end of the show and just leave you on to talk for the next 3 days.
I'll just be rambling to myself. The stream won't even be on.
See that look on Loco's face? She's looking for the digital hook to grab you. Pull you off
She's
screen
trying
right
to
now.
find the hang up button. They're like, why do we bring him on? I will say, and I do firmly agree when it comes to that, right? Like, these companies look heavily at ROI, and there's a couple things to
return
be
on
mindful
investment.
Of, right? Yes, thank you. Yes.
Gotcha.
one of the big things is like if they're really trigger shy on the amount that they can spend, right? If they're like, we can't really do more than this, they have a target for what they're trying to recoup if they're spending a certain amount. For example, we worked very recently with a brand that's new to this space. They're like, we've only done 3-4 campaigns with streamers, but we saw really good engagement. It seems like the communities are really passionate about the product. We want to try more. They acknowledged to us it's like their target return, because it's a new market for them, was a fraction of every dollar they were spending. They wanted to see some of their losses back, but get the product out there. So there is an aspect of brand awareness where these companies are okay losing some money on this because they know that they're going to get return customers. And it's okay to say two of the biggest conversations that I have with these brands is, one, can we renegotiate after the first term to say like, hey, how are we doing? What's working? What isn't? And can we talk about potentially more money or less if you aren't seeing what you're looking for? And almost every single one of these brands are going to be okay with it because they have their targets. And as long as they're hitting those targets, they're in the same boat as you. They're doing their job.
And sometimes it is the smarter move to, as you were saying, like, can we get more money, or sometimes less?
Yeah. It's okay to take less money, by the way. If you're enjoying working with a brand and they're like, if you get to the renegotiation and they're like, look, we're losing money on this and it's less than what we need to hit, can we pay you a little bit less next month? Like, it's okay if you've stepped back on some of the promotion. Like, they still want to work with you, especially if you're a good, like, passionate person when it comes to their product and their brand. Like, that's something that they're going to want to do.
And if your community's having a good time with it too, like if you've
100%.
made an event out of it, the people that you care about the most are enjoying it a lot, and that can be worth more than that extra dollar value that you may get.
If they want to see it stay as a part of your content, there is some value, and it's like, having that repertoire and that long running relationship with a brand, it also does look good when you're talking to other companies, because you can say, we've been working with these guys for 3 years now. They love us. They're happy. The community loves them. We're looking for more of those relationships with your brand. It's a really strong negotiation standpoint to say like, hey, look, we have proof that we have companies that come back to us month over month. We want that with you. And brands are typically looking for long-term relationships because that's what keeps their business thriving ultimately. A big thing on that topic is also finding out what their targets are, right? How can I help you hit your goals so that we can keep working together, 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now? We want your product to be a part of our community. What is your target? What are you looking for overall so that we can help you hit your goals so we can continue working together?
Something that I think we didn't hit here today, and according to Local, we only have 6 hours left to go. So, something that I think we need to speak about as well is just the size of an ask, the size of a deliverable in taking the lowball number. So all we talked about so far is valuing yourself properly and making sure that you get as much as you can, as much as you deserve, as much as you're comfortable with. The one thing we haven't talked about is the long game. There is such a thing as playing the long game. There is such a thing as, if you really want in with a company, accepting a lowball offer with the expectation that there will be more work to come. The caveat to that is that sometimes scammers and skeevy people can use that as a way to get free work out of you. So you really got to be working with someone that has at least a good reputation. Again, bringing back to the reputation subject, a good reputation for following through on what they say. For example, I will leave out company brands, but I have taken where a lot of times I'll do things if they will donate to Able Gamers, because that's sort of my jam. I've done lowball things where it was really a couple of bucks to do a thing, and I'll do it because I wanted them to keep working. And it worked. It got my foot in the door, and their foot wasn't in the door yet, and that opened up in order to get bigger opportunities. But there have been some times too where, you did something, it was cool, you could feel the vibe was this is not the right fit, this was a low ball, I'm getting used. And at that point, you say, you know what? Hey, thanks for this thing. I'm done now. If you really want me, here's the real rates. And you put your cards down on the table. And it's okay to say to them, listen, I don't feel like you're valuing me. And here's what my value is. I did this because I really wanted to work with you. And there's a very nice way to say this. You can very nicely say, listen, I value you as a company, as a brand. You, person that I'm dealing with, you seem really awesome, and I'd like to continue working with you. And in wherever you end up going after this, but I have to do X, Y, Z, and that costs me time and money. So I really need you to at least make it worth my while. They're not going to be super mad about it. right? And unless they're super childish, they're not going to be mad at you, right?
Let them make that bed for themselves.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Let
They're
them make
still
that bed
humans.
themselves. Exactly.
We are all people at the end of the day, and we like connection is a big deal. So if you treat people with respect and the dignity that you want as well, like it does make a huge difference.
Be honest. You know, here's a big silly one that almost all the people in this panel will tell everyone in the audience. Say please and thank you. That thing that you got taught by your mom. You know that thing that everybody thinks, I don't have to say that. Everybody just knows it's implied. No, it's not. Do you know the amount of people who do not hear, who work in PR, who give out keys, who send out a key and they never get an email back? It's something like 90%. It's ridiculous. If you're the person who says, may I please have one of these, I'd appreciate it. Even if it's their job to give you the key, you're still asking politely. And when they give it to you, you say, hey, thanks, I appreciate it. I was looking forward to this. Do you know how much higher that puts you in their book?
It's become a priority.
Can I tack something onto the end of that, Steve?
Please.
Okay. One thing that I've started paying a lot of attention to lately, and this is a point of assertiveness versus passivity, is not apologizing for maybe not being able to use the product or not, maybe it's not a good fit, but instead converting that into gratitude. So instead of saying, I'm sorry that I can't do this thing, it's like, hey, I can't do this thing, but thank you so much for, it's effectively the same thing, but it goes so much further to create that sense of gratitude as opposed to that passivity of like, I did something bad by not accepting the deal or by renegotiating in a way that allows it to not work or something like that.
Thank you for the consideration on this campaign is one of the most powerful things you can say to someone because it's true. Like if you show them that you're appreciative, it's huge.
It doesn't shut the door either.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It keeps you on their radar, which is something that is really tough because a lot of people do have that fear we mentioned before of, if I walk away from this, will this brand ever talk to me again? And it's tough. It's really hard to want to walk away from a deal because you never want to lose other opportunities in the future.
Right.
This example doesn't really apply to a lot of people and they recognize that. So take this for what it's worth to you who's viewing this at home. I was doing an activation with a company that I really wanted to work with, and they offered me a game, and the game was not accessible, and I knew that. And rather than taking the game and agreeing to use the key, I just looked up a quick thing on whether or not it would be good for me. It was not. I would not have been able to play it. And what I said to the person was, hey, listen, I looked up the preview video. This looks fun. This looks amazing. I can't play it. It's just not physically possible for me. So I appreciate you thinking about me, but unfortunately, I'm going to have to decline because I'm not the right fit for this. And they said, okay, thanks anyway. A week later, they offered me a different thing that was fitting and was way better paying and way better exposure because I took the time to say, hey, this wasn't it, instead of taking the key, disappointing them with bad news, telling them it didn't work, telling them why it failed. I just flat out in the beginning said, hey, it won't work with me. And they were like, cool. I saved that person at least an hour and a half of their time. And for that, I went up in their book because I valued who they are as a person.
Something to be in mind. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, that stuff really matters. I can't tell you how important it is to be diligent, be communicative, to do your job and do it well and be thorough about it, because you will be in the top of the list next time they come to you with another deal, if they move to a different company. Just being easy to work with and being communicative when working with streamers can feel like herding cattle. It really goes a long way. It's one of those really kind of obvious things, but actually going that extra mile and being super diligent and thorough is actually a massive difference maker.
With psychological factor.
Yeah.
I did want to toss on a note to what Steven said, which is, if a company comes to you and then and that's not the right one, they might be capped out on a budget for one activation, but another title they're working on may have way more spending money, which is something to be really mindful of. Obviously, different game studios, it might vary, but for marketing agencies where their entire job is, we have a budget of X we have to allocate to meet these deliverables, because they have whatever their targets are for their own activations. That's something that they might not be able to go over, but you can always say I understand that we're meeting in the middle on this one. I do want to make it known these are my normal rates. just so that it's on your radar for future, because then when they go, like they have a good activation with you, they go back to the next brand that comes to them and they're like, that agency may very well just say to the company bringing you an opportunity, we love working with this person, here's their rate, we recommend them though, they had great throughput, their delivery is fantastic, it'll give you good marketing assets, etc. And all of a sudden they're out there fighting for you to get your dollars at the end of the day. And like, especially with the agency side of things, like from the marketing agencies and sales companies that help these brands work, they get paid on top of what you're getting. And sometimes it is like, if we're taking $100,000 budget from X company, we tack on a 20% markup, right? If they only come to us with 50,000, we're only getting $10,000 for our time, but we might get 20,000 for 100,000. So it's not a detriment to these guys to want to charge more for you at the end of the day. They're just like, a lot of these companies are just as incentivized to fight for you as you are to ask for more with them. So it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Okay, so I want to get on this topic and then we have questions to get to. I have so much to talk about, but I really want to touch on this topic because especially for smaller creators, and they get a lot of affiliate deals and they want, like, the company wants to send them free product and just give them an affiliate link and give them a discount code. What are your guys' feelings on that sort of thing?
Steve, I don't know if you've got anything you want to throw in there.
Mine is pass. I mean, I'm pretty negative on this subject. I'm not a huge fan of affiliate sales. I think sometimes they work in certain situations, but I think by and large, if the only thing the company can offer you is that if you can show their product, you get some money with nothing on top of that, I think they're just using you as exposure.
I would agree 99% of the time. There is a 1% margin of error on that I will actually counter argue. Maybe 2%. So here's the one time I'm okay with affiliate deals is you know the company has no money to spend on the activation and you have never done a campaign before in your life, because you do need a portfolio to say, like, I've worked with these brands, they do like working with me. It's a decent practice exercise. If you have 20, 30 viewers and you're newer to the market, it's okay to take an affiliate campaign once to say, like, look, we've worked with brands before. This is how my community responded. Like, it's okay to do that to test the waters so that when you do have a brand come to you with like an actual budget, you can go into that confidently. But otherwise, yeah, I hate affiliate deals. It makes my skin crawl.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that my response to that would be that Santa is right.
It's like an internship.
Yeah, it's not that I'm so I'm gonna say this. Santa's right, and I don't think I'm wrong at the same time. I think Santa is
true.
Yeah, I think Santa. But I'm being serious. Like, I know it's funny, but it's also serious.
I fully agree. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like affiliate deals are skin crawly. They're not, and honestly, and my personal opinion, again, Santa does this for a living, whereas I've just been around because I'm old. Really.
I'm okay with it if it's in tandem, right? If they're willing to pay you either, and like one of my favorite things is a minimum guarantee, right? It is, you're committing to us to that we'll get this much. If we outperform that in sales, you pay us more. It's it's a win-win, right? Like, you're incentivized, you still have your campaign piece, and you know that your bills are paid for your time. However, if you outperform it, then they're just making profit at that point, and so are you. And similarly, like, it's okay for them to say, if the company, for example, is willing to do, and this is, far higher than the average affiliate deal, but it's like, if they're willing to do, 40% return on that, or, a percentage of someone's lifetime spend, those are the kind of affiliate deals that aren't necessarily bad, because if it's, a service that someone's going to spend $30 a month and you're getting $6 a month for them for that affiliate deal, it's recurring revenue. It's there are avenues within the affiliate deal market that are okay. My big thing is I like to use them as proving grounds for people, right? If someone comes to me and they've never done a campaign before, that's the one spot where I'm like, let's look at a brand where we know they have, like, it's a good product. You're going to get product from them for free that you like, but they only offer affiliate deals. There are some where that's, a decent offering.
Here's a good hit. Here's a good hit on Santa's point. Okay, so here's where I think Santa and I agree on this sucks, but you could do it, is take the hit for your community. Let's say you're a small streamer. Let's say you've only got 20 people who view every. Let's say 10 people every night. And that, you feel small because you only got 10 people, but they're loyal. They'll listen to what you say. Obviously, if you have 10 people, they already like you as a person, so they're coming back to you as the person. And if the company says to you, "Listen, I will give you, 3% of X sales for this item," and they're willing to give you one and you want to take it, fine, that's fine. But while you're doing that, say, "Hey, listen, I'll do this for you, but do you have any extra that I can give to my community?" This is where you turn it and flip it and make it a bonus for the people as a loyalty gift. "Hey, listen, they wanted to give me this new microphone. My mic's already good. I don't really need another one, but this one's pretty great. I'm going to graffle it off to you guys because you guys have been supporting me. And here's a code. If you want to buy your own, if you didn't win the sale or you didn't win this giveaway, then here you go. This will knock off 3%. And, they'll know that it came from me. That'd be really cool." Where if you can take the hit personally and you're financially, I guess, blessed enough to be able to do that, give it back to your community if you can.
I will add on, there's one more where affiliate's not necessarily a terrible thing, and that is if the product or service that the company is providing to you in return for that marketing does have an immense value to you, right? Like I'll put an example out there because it is probably one of the more sought after ones. Is a PC brand that I work with will only do affiliate work with a lot of the creators that we've presented to them. However, they shipped the guy a computer. They offered day of product support if something goes wrong. Like there is some level of return where it's like, I just got 1,500 in hardware, and if my computer goes up in flames, they'll mail me a new one tomorrow. Like there is some level of return where it's like they can't pay me, but that saves me, potentially thousands of dollars.
That is a lot of added value.
There is like, it is a value proposition at that point of like, are they offering me enough value to counterbalance the lack of compensation?
But now we're getting back into roll back the tape where we first got this question. You could see both Santa and I went, yeah. Because it's a different question when we don't talk about that on top stuff. So all the things that we're just listening, we're the on top. So you peel away everything we just said. You don't get a product. You don't get anything for your community. You get a code and you get a link.
Those I avoid, right? If they're adding intrinsic value to you, your broadcast, or your community, they're not as inherently bad. If all you get's a link and not even free product, I wouldn't even consider. I would look for another deal at that point.
Yeah. So I want to give an example of something that I saw recently from a friend of mine, where a chair company offered them a free chair that was worth, let's say, $1,000, and they didn't have any money for like an actual deal. But what they wanted was a social media post every month for like 2 years. And so, so at that point, you're getting a free $1,000 chair, you save $1,000, but how much did you just give up in
what does it cost you?
You could have been paid for. So it's really important if you're going to get like a free PC or a free chair or something. People love free chairs. If you're going to get some free stuff, and they ask for something in return, you should probably do some math on that, because that is something that they should be paying for. Like, you are already marketing their chair by having it on their stream. That's why a lot of streamers got free chairs, because
and usually the logo it's right here, right? Like,
they do a good
all the
job
time.
at that free product placement. I will say to that end, time and amounts are the most easily negotiated piece. It's always easier to say, I need you to cut this down from a year to 3 months versus saying, I need you to pay more, or I need you to give me XYZ additional. It's always easy. When it gets into negotiations, you can always flex with your time and your commitment easier, because that is something that's it's not a tangible thing that you can put your hands on. It is an intangible. And so there is flexibility around that a lot of times.
I have a follow-up question for this. Do affiliate deals ever lead to better contracts down the road?
I can point at maybe one where I have seen it be the case. The only one where I've seen it be the case was through an advertising agency, because they then proceeded to bring someone 10 more opportunities that were all paid. because they had such a successful campaign with that person.
Unrelated to the
It had
original
nothing
brand.
to do with the original brand.
Right.
The only reason that it happened was because they did a great job for the advertising agency, and the advertising agency then proceeded to take that content and reference it in 10 other sales meetings where the brand went, we love this person. So at the end of the day, it comes back to that, does it help to take it? Not really. But it does pay sometimes to work with marketing companies that do have other opportunities, right? When a company emails myself, any of my clients, and anyone I know in between, I go and I look at their website. I go digging to see who they are. If it comes from a Gmail, I would almost entirely skip over it. But I look at, if they have a domain in their email, when you look at the details, you can see who it's from. Go look at their website. What brands do they say they're working with? When you start talking to them, to say, like, you can schedule a call and say, like, hey, I'm interested in this. I can definitely work with you guys on this, but I'm really interested in working with this brand. Can you get me on their radar? It's a fantastic thing to do because, yes, sometimes it's like you bend a little bit, but that gets you into an area you want to be. Sometimes there is some level of concessions to make.
Yeah, I will say, I think as a tangent subject close to that, it's also a matter of they're paying for your personality. And this is a little gray area, a little sticky in this area, and you should always talk with your manager if you have one, or your PR representative. But if you can offer something different, I'll give you an example that I personally did. I did raid Shadow Legends, which is the joke of our industry. I did that for one specific reason. I read the contract, I read it up and down, and I talked to my PR person. I said, okay, I'll do this, but I'm going to have fun with it. Is that okay? And they said, sure, whatever you do is get the activations. Okay, cool. So I had a stream overlay that had a fun, like, 1980s sellout stage built on it, where I was sitting on there with a goofy little character of my the bad business suit, handing out money to the audience. I put a Raid Shadow Legends in the corner, played the stupid game, and went through the whole thing, got the activations. I told my community the whole time, like, man, they are definitely sponsoring the hell out of us tonight, and you have to be real careful, like, you can't reveal the money amount and whatnot. But I'm like, this is what I need to hit, everybody, so download it, please, play it, and delete it off your phone, and forget it exists. And I hit my number, and I got my my payout for it. But I made sure that it was okay with the agency first, and they were fine with it. Why? Because it was different. No one had ever done that before, and it was tongue in cheek. It wasn't malicious. I wasn't vehemently going after them. I was mocking the fact that everybody makes fun of this already. So if you can find a fun way to poke fun and bring some attention to a brand while also acknowledging, yep, they're paying me, that's the only reason I'm doing this, most brands will be okay with that. You just have to be careful about how you go that route. But I do think
you can tell up front how serious a company takes themselves.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. If it's like, this is a kid's toy for ages 8 to 12, like they're probably not going to want to have you swearing on the stream. But if it's like, an already sarcastic brand, like, they want you to play into that sense of humor, because your audience is more likely to engage with the product if you feed into what already works for their product.
Yeah, and I think you can look at their, Twitter feed, right? Like, we've seen this plenty of times over the last couple of years, especially where, the social media manager will have, this uniquely sarcastic and whimsical levity in all of their tweets, and you can play off of that, which is entirely different than, if they have a super serious kind of Twitter feed. That's an entirely different vibe.
Okay, so we have some questions from the chat that I want to make sure we get to. So the first one comes from Unruly Babs, who asks, how do we communicate with our fellow streamers to get fair rates?
It's a tough question to begin with. Like, it's not easy to have that conversation. And first and foremost, and I will put myself out there for this, if anyone that is watching or anyone that sees clips of this are ever uncertain about what to charge for something and need a sounding board, I would rather take 10 minutes out of my day to be there as a sanity check than to say, to see someone get screwed over for a campaign. And I think that's, a very easy way to approach it with friends, the peers, right? It is, hey, I was approached with this campaign. Can you make sure I'm not crazy with what I'm negotiating here. Like if you're uncertain, like I've mentioned Pixel Monkey, like I talk to him on probably a weekly basis to say, am I off my rocker with this number? Even though I know it to be the case, just because sometimes I'm like, can I really put this in an email to this company? Like just off the notion that like, you do start to second guess yourself on things. So it's okay. And like that might start a dialogue, right? If you're a part of a stream team, or like if you have a community of friends, a circle, and like what may potentially happen. And like, I know where a lot of the discomfort comes is like, you wouldn't want someone to feel jealous or feel like you're loitering it over them. Like potentially put them on the radar for the brands as well. If that will help ease it in your mind to say like, to go to the brand and say, hey, I have a friend. I would love to do this campaign with them. I think we can offer a lot more for your throughput and time. Like that's okay as well. Sometimes a lot of these brands want to see a larger sense of community for their campaigns. Some like co-op games, for example, like they already are likely looking for people that do co-op content together.
Yeah.
So like having those conversations with other streamers, like like there is a stigma around it, but like I feel like just like you can only find out by asking, right? And if they're willing to cut you out of their lives just because you asked a question and weren't certain, odds are like it wasn't meant to be as a friendship long term anyway.
And I think this can be part of the out of the box thinking too with the activation. If you have a streamer friend of yours that tends to stream, right after your stream, if you bring them into the fold with an activation, can you raid into their stream? Or if they're before you and you bring them into the fold with an activation, or like putting them on the radar, can they raid into you when you're both on that same activation?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna get a button that pushes over my head that says be respectful and kind, because I feel like that's just the answer I come back to every time. For my 2 cents on that before Loco goes to the next question would be just valuing your network. A lot of people are like, oh, I only want to make friends with people who are 10 times my size, but half the people that are your size or smaller will grow to be bigger than you. So just make friends and ask them questions. Read your contract. Does your contract say you're not allowed to reveal the amount of money, or that somebody else is not allowed to? Well, then you're not going to find out that way. But you can talk in generalities. Keep yourself legal. Don't breach your contract. Say something like, hey, did you feel like you got a good deal? I saw you worked with so-and-so. Did you like it? You're allowed to do things like that. You're not allowed to necessarily discuss specifics. But that's when you may need to reach out to a lawyer to say, hey, what am I able to say here? Did I sign my mouth away?
Oftentimes on the subject of the lawyers in the space, they will have also probably seen enough of those contracts that they would be able to potentially help you sanity check the numbers in that contract.
Yeah. I feel like also this is a great area where stream teams really shine too, like having that core group that you can like bounce this off without like any judgment, and like, they probably have similar experiences and pass you like a deal might not be a good fit to me, but I'll pass it to my teammate, or maybe it was a great deal for me and that company is looking for more people to do that. I've done that for a couple of deals already. I feel like stream teams are definitely super helpful, but yeah, just having like friends group of people that you can confide in and share info with. We have a question, let's see here, from Mac and Cheese, please, who asks, something I'm curious about is how to establish your rate if you have significantly different value on YouTube versus Twitch. How do you price yourself fairly?
That's a tough one. And I have someone in mind who I specifically I deal with that struggle because their primary platform has a significantly different audience and footprint than their Twitch, for example. And I think the answer at the end of the day is that they are different products. There are different offerings to the companies. And if you feel like, if you're only potentially getting 100 an hour for one product, right? Your streams, but you're getting, 5,000 on a video for YouTube. What you could potentially do is try and bundle them together and say like, well, look, we want to do both. And I feel like you can hit more of my market, for example. And a lot of times brands are open to it, right? To say like, hey, I can offer you all of this. And sometimes you make some level of concession, right? If it's a deal you really want to take. But the tough thing is, if there is a disparity in your two markets, it's okay to take lower deals for one platform than the other. Also, just increase your value a little bit because you do have the potential that your larger market may come over for the broadcast.
Yeah, that's actually a really great idea.
Okay. I had a question from the first topic that we covered that I didn't want to commit the faux pas of like breaking up a completely different subject to pose this. Now that we're in and asking questions, pretend this is from the audience. A very clever person from the audience asked this question.
Wild has asked.
A handsome person from the audience, yes.
So the general idea was about let me just kind of run with it instead of trying to preface. If your time is valuable, and I think all of our time is valuable to some extent. What do you think about the idea of overvaluing your time such that you only get one activation a quarter for $5,000, as opposed to several activations, 10 activations at $500 a pop? If you overprice yourself and hold out for those big deals that in turn give you overall the same amount of value as if you had taken a bunch of smaller ones, how does this balance out in your thinking?
I have one personal story I will reference on this one. I do software development work as consulting, and for the first year and a half I was doing this work, I was charging far too low for myself, and I was stressed out and constantly, slammed because people would be like, people would take advantage of the very affordable rate that I was charging. I 4x'd what I was charging, lost 80% of my clients, started making the same amount of money for one person that was happy to have my service. Personally speaking, I am very much a fan of, within reason, charging, more to set a precedent that people are paying for quality. And that is something that will carry through across a lot of different business avenues in life, be it streaming or otherwise, is that your time is value, and you can charge more to set a precedent that you are providing the best service they can find.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. For example, and I'll reference something a little bit closer to the streaming sphere of the world. If you're family friendly, that costs more because you're hitting a market that most people, especially content creators on this platform, can't necessarily say they are. And if you never swear you are always, okay for kids to watch as family level content, you're playing Minecraft, you're building homes, you're making very wholesome Sims content, that does cost more if a brand wants to get in front of your audience. And that's perfectly fine because they are paying for that level of service and quality. There are regulations around advertising in traditional media where it costs more to be an ad on a kids network than it does to be on some of the traditional networks when it comes to viewer for viewer dollar values.
I think this is the beauty of being a freelancer, really, is this is there's no it's not A or B, it's this constant changing influx of your time versus your worth and your priorities and your portfolio and the diligence that you do with your work. If you do good work consistently and you get companies coming back and you get that, that regularity, that assurance that you're going to be getting those deals more often, and you can start passing on the lower stuff or raising that price. Exactly to what Josh was saying with how he did his work, where he started with just a super low rate, got super busy, and can still make the same amount now by doing really good work, hooking those clients in that want to stay, working with less people, but making the same amount.
That's pretty much playing the long game. I mean, so here's the thing. Here's a topic that, again, as you've learned from listening to me and Hunter and sometimes Dantosh wax poetically, all subjects are connected, okay? People confuse busy and productive.
Yes.
You can be busy, but you may not be being productive. If you can do 10 activations to give you the same exposure for the same amount of money as the one that will take you longer to do that one for the same amount of money and the same amount of exposure, you are silly to do the 10.
Yeah.
The only reason you'd want to do the 10 is if there's a long game play. Does the long game get you into more eyeballs, more viewers, more networks? Sure. Do the 10 for lower. Be hungry. Do all the activations you can possibly do. But understand that when you start thinking about, oh man, I only had 5 meetings this week. Well, what were they? Oh, with PepsiCo and Google, and oh, cool. So you had 5 meetings. Yeah, what'd you have? I had 45. One was with an outlet that had 3 viewers, and one was. And here's the flip side of that. There's nothing wrong with column B. Like I started with column B. How I started in the industry, how Steve Spohn got to be a name in the industry was I treated every single person who had 10 viewers the same as 1,000. That's a great mantra, one I believe in. However, realize you have to be committing to that lifestyle. If you're going to be the person who does every single thing every single buddy asks and say yes always, understand it's going to be a tax. It's a mental tax. It's a physical task.
Yep. Like, so what you said, for my own personal experience, doing that busy work and taking everything on and getting that experience led me to, working with Marvel and Intel and Hershey's and Energizer. And just this month, my biggest opportunity yet, working with Oculus and Facebook on like by far the biggest thing I've ever done. So, it's, we've talked so much about like, from every level of your entry, affiliate deals, getting a code, getting product, to being on stage in front of 50,000 people. And what it comes down to is when it comes to assessing your worth is there's no one answer. There's no one secret sauce. And that is why we have attempted in the last hour and a half to dissect this topic. And I'm sure we'll talk about it again in the future because
there's a lot to cover with it.
There's so much and it always changes. The one thing that I would say about the industry is more and more opportunities are coming to streamers. Better opportunities also, like the quality of opportunities that come now compared to like it used to be only affiliate codes and they would call it sponsorships. I feel like you definitely see that a lot less. And I think streamers being savvy about this stuff and understanding like it's okay to say no, like figure out your worth, do what's
advantageous
right.
to say no.
Yeah. It really has shaped this industry so much and in a positive way that works for brands and for the creators. We only have 2 minutes here left. Do we want to try to tackle these questions? Okay, we'll try to power through these really quick.
I like the bottom one particularly.
I was going to say, that was the one that caught my eye.
Okay, so Mrs. Slender Weevil 31 asks, as a viewer, how can I best support the streamer through these campaigns?
After you, Mr. Claus.
I think at the bare minimum, like if you're like, how can I support it? It is liking and engaging with social posts where that is a mechanic you can utilize. The occasional clip's not a bad one. If nothing else, it helps the creator for what they need to provide to the brands to say like, hey, look, I did this thing with this product that you presented me with. And I think the other kind of big one, you don't have to necessarily buy the product, but take the time to click the link and check it out. Yep. Because that like even just to say that like to the brand, like, yeah, my audience looked at it. Maybe the like conversion page that they went to just didn't do the job. Like you can at least say like, hey, I supported what you're doing. Like I took a look at it and heck, maybe you actually end up liking the product or whatever they're promoting. And that's, that's the like over the moon option. Right. But I think overall just giving it the time of day, giving them, 30 seconds of your day to take a look really helps the creator because that shows the brand that your audience, like their audience is engaged with the product.
I think the social media one is an important one for a couple of reasons. I mean, even just dropping something like dope, just as a comment, right? But like the more engagement that sponsored post has, the more likely other people are also likely to engage with it as well. So it has a bit of a steamroll effect. You're not just directly affecting, one extra engagement with that post. You may cause 3 additional ones to happen as well, which even furthers the value to the streamer and that relationship.
Yeah, I'd say I agree with everything that Santa said, and also letting the best way you can support the streamer is by giving honest feedback as to the activation that they just went through. So if they're being really over the top honest about, here's the thing we got sponsored for, what did you think about it? Give honest feedback. If you liked it, let them know. If you don't feel comfortable in public, send them a DM, send them an email if you have to. But let them know. And honestly, the worst thing you can do is if you hated it, if you rolled your eyes at it, if you can't understand why they did it, the worst thing in the world you can do is when they call for feedback, say, "Oh, that was great. I'm glad you did it, Steve." Like that actually leads you down the wrong path.
Yes.
So that's the worst thing as a viewer that you can do. If you like something that I do, tell me that you like it. I'll be more likely to do it because I am the shepherd of the community. I want to herd you in the way that you want to go. But if you're telling me you want to go to the wolves, then I'll be like, all right, let's go to the wolves. So, I might get there and be like, are you sure about this?
That's what you said.
All right, you said you want to go here, but seriously though, like your feedback is more valued than you realize. And above clicking on the links, just letting the streamer know when they're messing up. Like, I had a personal Santa story. I had an activation with a sticker company. Something I would have never imagined in a million years would be something like, why does a sticker company care about wanting to be on my stream? This is cool and weird. And my community loves stickers. So there was like a solid portion of people that liked the stickers, but they were weird stickers and they weren't like ordinary stickers. And the community was like, yeah, those are weird. Like, I'm glad you got this, but maybe no. And I was like, okay, cool. Then we just won't do this again. And I turned down the next contract renegotiation. Because I was like, no, this is just not for me. My community said no, sorry. And that company has since come back and offered different things. Again, respect. And tell them, be honest. If you as a viewer are honest with your streamer can be honest with the PR people that have the money to keep your streamer from having to quit streaming and go back to the 9 to 5.
That's the one.
Yep. That's huge.
One thing I'll say about this question is, just being positive during the activation can make a big difference because, there's always this like stigma with sponsored streams and like
sell out
and like, why are you doing this, blah, blah, blah. I feel like that's gotten a lot better, but I think still there's always nervousness for a streamer doing a sponsored stream. Are people going to show up? Are people going to be feeling it? Are people going to start talking crap about it in the middle of the sponsored stream, which is incredibly uncomfortable.
That's a nightmare scenario for me. I get so much anxiety.
Or like talking about competitors, which is a thing I don't think viewers think about, but they're like,
never.
Please
oh,
don't do
I like
that.
this company better. So just being positive and supportive and engaged
Publicly,
with the activation, that is completely free to do. Click the link. There's always a tracking link. Click it, check it out. All of that is totally free. Engaging on social media, totally free, and seriously helps. It can help that company come back. And it really is about like the streamers take these opportunities because we don't want to rely on subs and bits and the community to support us all the time, right? Like it's terribly stressful, and we want to take the pressure off the viewers. So, having these opportunities it's huge. And again, there's a ton of free ways that you can help just by engaging with the content. So, I think with that, we are over time for today. As much as I want to keep going, got to be respectful of everyone's time. So let's do some shout outs. And if you have any closing thoughts you want to get out there, we can go ahead and do that. Steven, starting with you, who are you? What are you up to? What are you all about?
Well, my name is Steve. I enjoy kitty cats, long rolls on the beach, and ice cream. You can find me on bumble.com. You can find me on Twitter, Steven Spohn, just about everywhere. My thing in the world is pretty much just I'm gonna do this positivity. Just as long as you're out there and as long as you are trying to make the world a better place in doing what you do and doing your streams, whether you're a streamer or a viewer, allow yourself the respect and kindness for other people. So when you're talking to people who can make a contract negotiation happen for you, say please, say thank you, even if it's their job to help you. Same with you would do with a waiter. There's that old litmus test of however you treat a waiter is how you would treat somebody if they didn't have anything to give to you. It's the same thing in the PR industry. So treat them how you'd want to be treated. A viewer, realize that this industry sucks in a way. There is turnover. We lose probably one viewer. I don't know this, but I think it's like one viewer for every 5 you gain or something like that is the industry turnover standard, because people age out of Twitch. They don't want to do this anymore. They don't want to watch anymore. Their lives get busy, etc., etc. Understand that you have to have a rapport with your audience, and if you abuse that, just like a relationship, you can lose their trust, and you lose them forever, and you don't get them back. So you want to avoid that at all costs. If you're being a good person, you're going to largely avoid that. And make sure you don't get yourself into something that you're not ready for. If you only have 20 viewers, I know you're at the point where, man, I wish I had Dr. Lupo numbers, and I wish I was out there doing Intel sponsorships, but maybe you're just not ready for that yet. So there's no shame. Dr. Lupo had 0 viewers at one time. So did I. So did Loco. So did Hunter. Santa always had mystical elves under him, so he doesn't count. But the rest of us.
I have my workers to help out boost my channel up, clearly.
That's right. And in all seriousness, listen to people like Santa, like Loco, like Hunter. But there's a certain thing as analysis paralysis. Don't get caught up in it. Just go do good things, do content, and eventually people will come along that want to sponsor you, and they'll actually say to you, here's some money, put our logo on your stream. Don't do anything different than you're already doing. And that, my friends, is the premier sponsorship you can get.
Very much
Absolutely.
the case.
All right, Santa, hold it up. Good luck.
I'm Josh Santa on Twitch, Santa Devs on Twitter. You can find me on social. Feel free to harass me for pretty much anything and everything. At the end of the day, I very much want to echo what Steve said, which is, be good to others. It is, especially with everything going on in the world right now, it's a tough year, and everyone is, needless to say, very, very stressed. Life's been hard on everyone. So I will quote Whoopi Goldberg on this one as a direct thing she has said to me, which is, don't be an asshole.
Are you deserving of that, Santa?
There's a story to that. For another day.
We're just gonna make our own story ahead.
Her for her favorite life advice to give people, and that was the thing that she took away from it all. At the end of the day, be kind to one another. It does make a difference. Treat people like humans, because at the end of the day, the people showing up to watch your content are just that, and the brands that want to work with you want you because you have that rapport with your audience. Big or small, and especially this year, be kind to yourself. Don't run yourself into the ground. It's okay to take a minute and relax, because it's far better for your content to come back revitalized after a couple days off to just recover. If someone stops watching your content on that very day because you weren't there for 24, 48 hours, they weren't going to be there long term anyway. Be good to yourself so that you can be the person that your core audience wants.
Yeah.
Why I don't stream anymore. Hunter, what are you up to?
My closing statement, to tie back into everything that we were talking about today, with the absence of one thing, is one of the big pushes that we have at Streamer Square in our education is to help people work for a paycheck and not to play the lottery. A lot of the conceptualization of the streaming space is you want to hit your big break and you want to get the whales in to toss tons of money at your stream. Playing the long game, thinking with that infinite mindset, allows you to build up the empire for the future that can cut you a check, rather than hoping to get that big break that will magically not actually ever come for most of us. Get that paycheck. Don't play the lottery. I have not been streaming for the last couple of months, as I've been on an intermission working on some big projects, 38 projects, matter of fact. And I'll be coming back on November 10th for the launch of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Very excited for this. Very excited. I'm going to be rolling out a ton of my projects right then, that very day, and in the near future after that. Super amped to be working on a lot of our back behind the scenes projects here at Streamer Square over the next couple of months too, as we go on hiatus. There's this bit of a flip flop of I was on hiatus, now coming back to streaming. We've been streaming so much at Streamer Square, and now we're coming back, going to do a hiatus, an intermission. Very excited for that. Loco, you brilliant human being. What about you?
Yeah. So, as Hunter mentioned, this is the last week of our shows until 2021, where we're going to come back with some improvements to our current shows, but also some new shows and a lot of new stuff. I'm really, really excited.
We have to be vague about it. It's new stuff.
We have a newsletter that you should sign up for that we're going to start rolling out to keep you guys up to date with what we're working on. I think we also have a roadmap, and if we don't, it's going to be very soon. We're going to have
it's not here soon.
Public roadmap for you guys, so you guys can follow along. Okay, we do have a public roadmap for you guys, so you guys can follow along with what we're working on. I mean, it's not, that doesn't have everything, but we try to give you guys a little bit without showing a whole hand
as much as we can show for the time being.
We have some really massive things in the works for 2021, so we're going to be taking the next 2 months on working on those things and focusing on that. So if you guys like this content, you can find us everywhere. We're on YouTube, our website, Twitter, Discord, also Streamer Square, pretty much everywhere. Feel free to come join.
And our website, streamersquare.com.
Yeah, Streamer Square everywhere. And make sure to catch the rest of our shows this week. Hit the follow button. And we will see you guys in 2021 for the return of the stream scene. Thank you all for watching. And we'll see you next year.
Happy Thanksgiving. Merry Christmas.
Bye.